Hello and welcome to Oilers Live Podcast. This is episode 8, and I've got Mike, who is the purveyor of the Oilers Megathread on Twitter. You can find him on Twitter at Mike Dirsa, D-I-R-S-A. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. Did I get your last name right?
It's Dirsa, yeah. That's how we say it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for joining today, and happy to have you on. I know we've been trying to schedule this for a couple weeks now. I got a couple questions for you. First off, how long you been an Oilers fan?
My dad went to see a game, I think in 1984, when the Oilers were playing the Islanders with my uncle. They got seats from a guy that used to be heavily involved with the Oilers, Bill Toelli, and I grew up kind of about an hour away from Grand Prairie, Alberta, so northern Alberta. So basically, you could say ever since I was born, I've been an Oilers fan. So 80s Oilers, I know quite a bit about, and ever since I've been on board. So it's been a while. And
did you have a favorite player growing up?
Yeah, I guess Wayne would be at the top of the list, and all those other guys on board that ship there. I bumped into Yari Curry once in West Edmonton Mall. The Oilers were practicing there, and he came underneath the netting, and there I was, and little 12-year-old me just about knocked over Yari. So yeah,
right on. We'll chat about a couple other things I want to know about Twitter and the Megathread. But while we're on that, so were you living in Edmonton then at all? Did you move to Edmonton in the 80s? Were you?
No, I spent, I kind of been bounced around a lot. My first 12 years, I lived in a little town called Spirit River. And after that, I moved to southern Alberta when I was going into, I guess, grade 8. Another river called Milk River, and
I know Milk River.
And when I was there, I got to watch guys like Jamie McLennan, Wes Walls, and those guys play for Lethbridge Hurricanes. So that's kind of my familiarity with the Western Hockey League play. And after that, I moved to Central Alberta, about 45 minutes away from Viking, Alberta. That's
home of the Sutters.
Yeah, that's where Mikey's Bantam hockey came into play. And playing Viking, some good battles, tough hockey, yeah. And after that, I spent a year in the United States, 2 hours away from Boston, played hockey down there. And then I came back to Sedgwick, Alberta to kind of graduate, and eventually I ended up at Lakeland College in Lloydminster, and then back up north to Grand Prairie for 15 years, and now I'm currently living in Leduc.
Okay, so just outside of Edmonton.
Yeah.
Now, you when you said Central Alberta, did you get, obviously, I guess the AJHL, did you get out to any of those games?
Really, when I was in Sedgwick, we had... I got to see Shane Doan play Junior B.
Nice.
15 years old.
Yeah.
The Anomaly. And he actually was our guest speaker at our high school awards night. But no, I didn't watch any AJHL there. I did in Grand Prairie, the Grand Prairie Storm, and got to see, I think it's Carter Rowney that played for Pittsburgh last year. Play a little bit of his junior there, but when I was in Sedgwick, no, there was no Junior A that I watched. If any higher caliber than Junior B, it was coming to Edmonton to watch the Oilers. So,
yeah, what's Lloydminster has a team, right, in the AJHL?
Yeah. I've when I was in Lloyd, I watched some AJHL. I had some friends for. I think they've changed their name now, but I think they were the Bandits or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, the Bandits. I remember now. And did you get out to, when you were in Lethbridge, you get out to a lot of WHL games back then?
Yeah, we would go almost to every home game.
Yeah.
That year, so I saw quite a few Hurricane games.
Yeah. Still a big Hurricanes fan?
not as much, but yeah, I followed them pretty extensively then, and the guys that played there that year, like there was a few of them that ended up going to the NHL, like Jamie McLennan, Wes Walls, I think Corey Lyons was another one. They had a pretty deep team that year, so it was a lot of fun to watch those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the Sean from the Oil Night on, and he's a big OHL fan. But I've been a big fan of the WHL for a long time. I grew up. I had an uncle that played for the Blades, and so I was a big Blades fan, and still kind of have a soft spot for the Blades. I'm here in Calgary though, so I do get out to the odd Hitmen game when I'm not going to Oilers games. And just because I'm a born and raised Edmontonian, I'm also an Oil Kings fan. Yeah. So, let's chat now. I mean, the reason that you and I connected was because you are, as I said when we opened, the purveyor of the Megathread, the Oilers Megathread, and for those of you that don't know what that is, because I was introduced to it from a friend of mine, Lars Kaliu, and tell us a little bit about the Megathread and how it all started and what it's all about.
Yeah, I guess just a bunch of people that kind of follow each other on Twitter. We would talk sort of in the preseason and stuff like that, and then the first game of the year against Calgary. I was kind of tagged by Sean, the Oil Knight there, and it was kind of the brainchild of him and another guy, and I'm not really 100% sure who the other guy was, but they ran it on the first game of the year, and they tagged, I think it was over 50 people at one time, and so everybody's phones were going nuts and notifications, and we were all getting schooled on how to almost become a celebrity and sort of limit your notifications so you could kind of keep up to what everybody was trying to say during the course of the game. But after that game, the guys kind of decided to sort of back off, and if the Oilers made the playoffs, they would get it going again. But I think there was probably a good 30 or at least 25 people that were sort of upset and wanted to keep it going, so I just sort of took the initiative and kept it going, and it's caused me to learn how to sort of make kind of not great, but little GIFs that are mine are pretty basic. They're just pictures, almost like a slideshow.
Yeah.
But, so that's kind of what's been going on there, and anybody that wants in can jump in. I mean, it's not all Oiler fans that are a part of it. There's a lady that's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and another girl that's a Canucks fan, and it's just people excited and talking hockey and sometimes talking other nonsense, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and I know one time you had Georges Larac in there. Do you keep adding him in every?
Yeah, and he keeps surprising us because I don't know, everybody's always afraid of George, but he every once in a while he'll comment or he'll like a post, and everybody gets excited about that. And the anthem singer Robert Clark, he will chime in here and there because everybody kind of compliments him on what a good job he does, and he'll pipe up. And the Vegas Golden Knights there responded to a George Larac tweet on there too, so it's it can get some famous people to chime in every once in a while.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, it is non-stop during the game. It just keeps on going. Once you're in, if the notifications don't kill you, you can always mute them. But it's a lot of fun, a lot of crazy people, and a lot of fun comments, and just good overall fans. I'd say not a lot of negative fans in that thread.
Yeah, and a lot of times. When games aren't going good, it's a little bit of entertainment to ease the sadness of Oilers kind of getting pounded, which has happened a few too many times this year. But yeah.
Yeah, I was at the 5-0 Buffalo Sabres game, unfortunately, and that was ugly. But you know what? We bounced back in the Flames game. So does it keep you like when you do the Megathread? Sometimes I wonder how there's some people that tweet 10 times more than others. Does it ever distract you from the game?
Yeah, I sometimes I don't really pay attention to every single thing that's said. I'd be lying if I said I did, and I hope that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. But yeah, no, I like to keep my head up, but playing sports can kind of multitask peripheral vision a little bit and keep my head on the game. But when there's kind of a little bit of a lull, then you're checking to see what's going on and who's saying what, and yeah.
As I said, I've definitely muted it once or twice. I reluctantly got involved. I don't know, maybe probably 5 or 6 games ago. I asked you to put me in, and you did, and I'm glad that you invite me every time because it's fun, and especially pregame and in intermissions, it's a lot of fun to see what people are saying and get some of the banter, and yeah, it is a good group.
Yeah, and you know what? Almost every game this year, there's been 1 or 2 people that are actually at the game, like when it's a home game, and that makes it interesting too, because they'll post pictures from the game or give us kind of an inside look. And I've been at 2 home games and kind of live tweeted from there. Definitely not as active when I'm there in the building as when I'm at home, but yeah.
Yeah, I do think actually the night that I spent the least amount of time on Twitter recently was that Sabres game, so that's it's definitely a lot harder to be looking down at your phone or whatever when you're in the arena and you're watching the game. So tell me, what's your thought on the season so far? I mean, you and I and the rest of the Twitter crew, we've had our discussions around the Oilers this year. What's your thoughts on the season so far? Obviously, it's disappointing to everybody, but anything that strikes you?
Well, I think there's a couple of positives. I guess I'll start there because there's lots of negatives.
Yeah.
Darnell Nurse, the emergence of him. I remember at the start of the season, there was a whole bunch of guys on Twitter that wanted to trade him. Trade him now. He's not going to be worth anything. He's only going downhill. He's never going to be, a number 2-3 defenseman in the NHL. He's always going to be a bottom pairing guy. I'm happy that he's proven those guys wrong. That I see so much talent in him. I think he's one of the more honestly athletic Oilers we've ever seen. Probably physical specimen. Mark Messier would come to mind as somebody that would match him, but yeah, on the back end, I really don't think we've ever had a physical specimen like him.
Yeah.
So that's a positive. The play of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to me is he's had a breakout kind of year, and I'm happy for him. Hopefully that means he's going to stick around. McDavid, I guess, is Connor McDavid. I don't see any slowdown or let up in him. Yeah, I think Leon Draisaitl, if he could put some points on the board on the power play, he'd be right up there too. I think his 5-on-5 play is fine, but they need to figure out if he's going to be a winger or a centerman. Pick a planet and land is kind of my attitude on. And to me, those are the bright spots. I see kind of Talbot struggled. I think he was fighting through injury early in the season. I still think he's a good goalie and somebody that we can build this team around. But I think the shortcomings on this team are they didn't do enough to shore up the right wing position, especially. Could probably use a quick, speedy left winger. But at the right wing position, trading Jordan Eberle for Ryan Strome, to me, you're taking a step backwards. You're giving up a guy that's a proven 20 to 30 goal scorer and replacing him with a pretty much unknown commodity, a guy that's probably going to be a third and fourth line player his whole career. To me, that's a mistake. I knew all summer, if people want to go back a mile on my Twitter and check this summer, when Andre Sekera went down in the playoffs last year, I knew missing him was going to make it hard for us to do what we did last year, but by no means did I think we'd be in the position we are. I think everybody sort of overestimated what this team was capable of. Everybody was saying we would be a Stanley Cup contender. I wasn't sure about that. I don't think we had an overwhelming roster, and to me,
So let me ask you about that, because this is something, obviously, I mean, I've been in conversations with you about this on Twitter, and there's certainly an underpinning of anger for Peter Chiarelli right now. And some of the moves that he's made since he's been on the Oilers, on the front line there, and sort of dictating what kind of personnel decisions are being made. And one of the things you brought up, of course, was the Eberle for Strome trade, which is one of those things. My own personal opinion on it, for what it's worth, it wasn't ever meant to be a straight up trade. So we didn't expect to get the same or even close to the same from Strome. I think, there was some hope that maybe he could find his game. And he had a great first season when he played with Tavares. He never returned to that. And certainly he tried the first line when he got McClellan, tried him on the first line. I think the mistake in that is not using that extra cap space to shore the team up. But then my next point, I think, is about, exactly what you said. You're probably one of the first people that didn't think this was a Stanley Cup team. I mean, there were a couple people, I guess. But you obviously, maybe you saw what is exactly happening today. I think maybe I might have been close in that assessment at the beginning of the season. I didn't think we were as good as everybody was saying, but everybody thought this was a Stanley Cup team. I mean, all the quote unquote experts said this was a Stanley Cup team. Do you think, I mean, we're kind of dancing around it, or you're kind of dancing around some of these things. Do you think Chiarelli's at fault here? Is that, or, is this, a player problem? Is it a coach problem? Maybe a combination of all three? What's your thought?
My thought is it's a bit of all three. There's shortcomings by the GM. But when you look at the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the expansion anomaly, I'm going to call them, they're getting the most out of what they have. There's nobody that's not pulling in the same direction on that team. I don't think they go into games and afterwards have comments like what we heard out of Lucic and McDavid after they played Buffalo, where they're expecting to win a game before they even play it. We're not the 95-96 Chicago Bulls right now. We don't have a professional attitude going into every game where we need to come in with our suits on, take our suits off, put our equipment on, and go out and do our business, shower, put our suits back on, and get out of there and on to the next game. They're not playing that way. And to me, a part of that that's a player problem, that's a maturity problem and a professionalism problem with the players. But to me, that points at Todd McClellan and his crew. I do not understand why our PK is top of the league on the road and bottom of the league at home. To me, that is something that is so hard to understand. And the power play, I don't know if we're 30th or 31st, but we're down there with the talent that's on this club. It just does not make sense. I don't see enough tinkering with the power play. They'll shuffle the parts on the power play, but not the system. The system isn't working. I think teams have keyed in on what we did last year.
Yeah.
And we're not making any adjustments, and it's not working, but we're, it's, to me, it's the definition of insanity. Keep trying the same thing and expecting different results when it keeps failing. It doesn't make any sense. To me, that's the hardest part to stomach. When I see games where they come out and they have a strong effort, they usually have success. There's games where they come out and they don't have a strong effort, and they fall on their face and get blown out. I think, if they could get their power play going a little bit and a couple of bonus goals, you get your confidence going and think good things can happen. But they take they get a power play, they don't score on it, then they take a penalty and they get scored on, and then they're beat. They're done. I don't know. I think bringing in Paul Coffey will help the defense, but I don't think that's a short-term thing. I think that's more of a long-term thing. I don't think you'll get instant results out of that.
It's been usually always the same things. I mean, it's a bit of the players. We've had some regression of some players. It's a bit of the management. We've definitely missed out on some key moves that should have made. I think everybody agrees Chiarelli just didn't estimate who would regress and didn't estimate how much we'd miss Sekera and then expected maybe too much of some of the moves that he made. And then I think a lot of people agree it's coaching. There's a lot of different things. So it's kind of interesting. This is episode 8 now, but it's been a pretty consistent thing on Twitter and consistent everywhere that I find it hard to believe that this many people are wrong. I always think as fans, we can pretty much say and do whatever we want because we're not there and we don't have to live with those consequences. But, we've been seeing the same thing sort of night after night. And we certainly, as fans, we want our team to do the best. We'll see, I guess. I think, what we know now after the All-Star break is, nothing's going to change on the front staff for the Oilers. I think we're going to, the coaches will be the same and the GM will stay the same until the end of the season at the very least. So I think this is the team we have. Let's maybe skip ahead to we've got we've played 49 games now, so that means there are 35 left, right? And we've got, I think Bob Stauffer put it out there that we've got the final 33 games will be in 66 days. So it's a pretty tough schedule. Just, I guess, a quick yes or no. Do you think the Oilers can do it?
Well, we got 33 games to go. If we play,
is it 33 to go?
We played 49.
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, 33. You're right. And that's so 66 days left. Yeah.
And the way I see it, people want a 10, 12 game winning streak. I'm not so concerned about that, but I think you kind of have to be playing at a 775 clip. So you got to win every 3 games out of 4, and you can't lose 2 games back to back.
Yeah.
To me, this team hasn't shown that they can do that. So we've got Connor McDavid. We've got the best player on the planet. I won't count him out. But do I think it's likely? No. If you ask me to put a number towards it, I'd probably say about a 5% chance.
Yeah.
And the mathematics people will say different, but we've got Connor McDavid, so I won't count it out. I think there's talent in that group. It's just whether or not they come to work every night and put in a solid effort. You can't lay any more eggs. You can't. Yeah. I mean, you're going to lose games when you have a good effort, let alone the ones that you don't. So you can't afford to take a night off. And they've had, in the last 3 weeks, we haven't played very much hockey. So it's all going to come now. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I you know what, I don't disagree with you. It's a minimal chance. I'm a fan, so I'm gonna hold out hope until I stop asking guests if we have a chance. yeah, it's not likely. I would love to see them though finish out the year strong. I don't want to see them certainly tank for a pick, which they won't do. It's too proud of a team, I think, right now. So, I just want to see them finish strong. Let's move on from that. I think, right now, until we see a couple of games, we're not going to, it's hard to say what's going to happen. And I'm curious what lineups McClellan comes out with. One of the things I'm kind of interested in, and, I haven't asked enough of the guests about, what are the favorite podcasts? If you listen to podcasts, what are your favorite Oilers or hockey podcasts? And what's your favorite blog? What are some that, some don't miss sites that you go to or don't miss podcasts that you listen to? And you don't have to be a homer on this show. You don't have to say my podcast.
You got me now. Of course, I'm going to say that now, but
yeah.
I pay attention a little bit to a bit of everybody. I listen to David Staples and Bruce McCurdy a little bit. I follow, Wood Guy on Twitter, and some of the kind of the math geniuses, Oilers Nerd. I try to, see a little bit of everybody and where they're coming from, and if there's any bits of what they're saying that I agree with, then I'll tune in and pay attention. The other night went to see Lars and do his thing, and the Nation Dan guy was there, and I pay attention to a little bit of what he has to say. Twitter sometimes can be mainstream media versus blogger guys, and they can get into it and butt heads, but if people don't attack me personally, then I'll keep listening to them, and if there's little bits that I can pick up that I find that are positive, then I will use that and help shape my thinking. I don't follow the Western Hockey League and OHL as much as when I was younger. So, Sean the Oil Knight and Beer League Hero and some of those guys, they're more in tune with what's going on with prospects coming up, and that, I pay attention to Yamamoto because he's already picked, but I don't watch, the thousands or hundreds of guys that are all through the Canadian Hockey League and in Europe and all that. I rely on other people for that kind of info. So
there's certainly, those are all great podcasts. I listen to Cult of Hockey as well, and I make sure to listen. I'm based in Calgary, but I listen to Oilers Now, the podcast version. Sometimes I get a chance to listen to Stauffer Live, and of course I've had Beer League Hockey, Kelly from Beer League Heroes rather, and Sean from the Oil Knight on the show. I reached out to Oiler Nerd Alert, and he's he or she, I guess. I assume I assumed wrong. I don't know, but Oilers Nerd Alert has agreed to be on the show. And David Staples actually said that he would do one, but I haven't heard back from him yet as to when that's going to happen. But all super knowledgeable guys. And then I'm going to have Sean and Kelly. So Sean from the Oil Knight and Kelly from Beer League Hero. We're going to do a prospect episode. I think this Friday we're going to do it. So that should be fun. And what we're going to do is we're going to break down, maybe the top 5 prospects for the Oilers in the system and who we might consider in draft day when that comes, who's up and coming, and just kind of condense that into an episode and just have some fun and chat about it. So a lot. You're right. Yeah, there's so many good resources, and they don't always. I don't always agree with all of them. Right? Sometimes, I shake my head and I think, what are you watching a different game than I am? But they're all good, right? I mean, they're all they're all fun, and if you have the right mindset, then you can at least have some fun, and it doesn't get too personal. I think that's
I don't agree with a lot of the sort of the blogger guys. It's all on Chiarelli. I don't believe that's actually the case. I watch what's going on with Vegas and Vancouver's early success, and their coaching was getting the maximum out of their rosters, and I just don't believe Todd McLellan is getting that right now. I don't believe that's all Todd McLellan's fault. I think it falls sort of on the guys in the room too, but there's definitely a disconnect, and I don't think any of the blogger guys are willing to point that out. They sort of seem to omit that and just go straight for Chiarelli. Chiarelli needs to take onus for his missteps for sure, but so does McLellan, and so do the guys in the room. I think it's all three.
So I ask you this question because I've not asked anybody this, but it just came to mind. Do you think as a GM that you could have won the Eberle and Hall trades? And do you think that we could have kept them on the team? I mean, my own personal opinion, and I'll just put this out there before you answer. My own personal opinion is they both had to go, both from a fan standpoint, right? Like everybody was down on Eberle for sure. And I think we probably would have had a lynching if Chiarelli kept him on the team. And Hall, I think, had to go just because, you have two. I think Hall's a superstar. I loved watching him play. And I don't think there was a problem chemistry-wise, but I just think he had to go because it's hard to have two superstars on the team. So what's your thought? I mean, do you think there was any way for him to win that if he kept them on the team, if he traded them? My personal opinion is no, but maybe you see it.
What I see with the Taylor Hall, Adam Larson trade is they traded Taylor Hall. As much as people want to talk about a cancer in the room and all that stuff, I don't really buy into that so much. The thing about that I see is they needed a shutdown defenseman, and that's what they got in Adam Larson. Because we didn't know Nurse would be at where he is right now. Maybe if they would have saw that he could develop into where he is right now, then maybe you could afford to not make that deal. I don't have a problem with Hall for Larson. The only thing with that I wish would have happened is Chiarelli would have held out for a little bit more and maybe got a second round pick. To me, that would have made that a bit more of a wash, and you could stomach it a little bit more. But honestly, I have less of a problem with Hall for Larson than I do with Eberle for Strome. To me, you just didn't get enough back. You gave up on a guy that's, he didn't perform in the playoffs. Yeah, people want to tag him as Eberlazy. That's to be the going word for him. Yeah. Jordan Eberle is what he is. He's a potential scorer. He's that threat. You took that away and you didn't replace it. Yeah, you did it for cap space, but we still have that cap space right now. It was never used. So, and I don't fully buy we traded him so that in case somebody offer sheeted Draisaitl, huge money. Yeah, well, I just don't see that we needed to be worried about a $12 million Leon Draisaitl signing somewhere else. I don't actually think anybody else would have offered him the same as what he got from Edmonton. So to me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And you didn't do anything with that cap space either. So to me, the Eberle for Strome deal probably bugs me more than the Hall for Larson. Well, it does. It's not probably.
And there were points last season, where people were saying that we won that trade, that Larson for Hall trade. I mean, there were, everybody was pretty happy with Larson at the time. I think it's easy to, to forget about that when, Larson's having a bit of an off year this year, and the Devils, who, I had a guest from the Carolina Hurricanes podcast, section 328, on my last episode, and he suggested the Devils are in for a huge slide. They're already on a slide, that they won't make the playoffs this year. I think he's right. I mean, I think they've got 1 or 2 wins in their last 10. if I'm not mistaken. 3 wins, pardon me. So, they might not be sitting in a playoff spot by the end of the season. So, maybe people will let off on that Hall-Larson thing. But yeah, that's my take on it. Look, we're pretty close to out of time. I want to thank you for being on the episode and keeping the mega thread going. It's fun for everybody. Where do people find you on Twitter? How do they get involved in the mega thread? And any last words?
Well, my Twitter handle is at Dirsa Mike, so it's DIRSA MIKE. And every time there's an Oiler game, usually I do it a couple hours before the game. I'll make a post about that game. If anybody ever wants in, they just can tweet at me directly and ask me to tag them in, or they can just go on to the posting about that game and make a comment, and they basically tag themselves in. So yeah, a couple different ways to do it.
Excellent. Any last thoughts on the Oilers and their upcoming game? It's Colorado Thursday night.
Yeah, it'd be good to, Cam Talbot comes out and says we're going to make the playoffs. Well, if that's the case, it kind of starts Thursday night. So it's time to not talk about it anymore. It's time to do it. Talk is cheap.
Sorry, did he say that recently?
Yeah, that's what he said yesterday.
All right. Well, I missed that. So look at me. I'm hearing something here for the first time. That's well, you know what? I like the enthusiasm. So that's all good. Thanks again, Mike, for joining tonight. I hope we get you on again. Another Mega Thread podcast. We'll hopefully we got some better things to talk about than what's wrong with the team, and maybe some more positive things. Coming up, I've got Sean and Kelly, Beer League Heroes and the Oil Night. We're going to do a prospect episode. Tomorrow night, I've got an episode with the BSN Denver editor for the Colorado Avalanche, AJ. And we're going to talk about the upcoming game on Thursday. And I'm going to continue to do a bunch of segments about podcasts around the NHL. So that's a lot of fun. Good to have you tonight, Mike, and we'll have you back for sure. If you'll be back, I should say.
For sure. It was fun. Thanks a lot.